This is every single fight to make next after UFC 303, Pereira versus Prochazka 2. I've got all of the key fighters from that card on the screen right now. Some winners, some losers, and you may notice there is an empty box next to all of them, and that's where their next opponent's going to go, who I've hidden around the perimeter of the screen. I'll slowly reveal those opponents one by one as the video goes on and place them where they belong on the screen. Let's start straight away with the main event. This is how legends are made. That hurts so bad to watch. The walkout, the humiliation, the destruction, the head kick that ended it all. Alex Pereira beats Garry Prochazka. This guy is embarrassing the entire sport of MMA. And I love it. Alex Pereira gets it done. Great win from him. Can make a quick enough turnaround, but although he did, I think he broke his toe on the head kick that he hit Garry with. That's how tough Garry is, guys. Guys, Garry's that tough that he broke Pereira's toe, guys. I'll find any win for Garry I can here. Pereira wins. Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall. I'm just going to say it. You have to either justify Pereira moving up to heavyweight to potentially fight Tom Aspinall if he does get past Curtis Blaydes next month, or you have to justify Ankalaev getting a title shot. Now, Ankalaev can get a title shot, but Pereira can also move up and get this opportunity at heavyweight, and we've never seen someone have the ability to try this before. Let's not fumble this. We've never really had a situation where you can actually justify someone moving up for their third world title in the UFC. And after what he just did to Garry, if Aspinall is also mentally backwards and decides to just stand with Pereira, Pereira's got a shot. I mean, he probably will win if Tom Aspinall does that, let's be honest. But Alex Pereira, Tom Aspinall, this is the matchup I want to see. If Aspinall does beat Curtis Blaydes, we know Jones is not going to fight either of them. If he is, he's probably going to want to fight Pereira instead because he has a more easy way to victory with the takedown. But he's going to fight Stipe Miocic. Absolute sham of a fight, disgracing the sport. Real warriors, though. We have some real warriors at light heavyweight and heavyweight. Jones never did that to a single contender, what Pereira just did to Garry. I know people are going to say, oh, Machida, Shogun. Dude, Shogun, third round. Forrest Griffin finished Shogun in the third round 2 years before Jones did. You know what I mean? Machida was landing really good shots on Jones in round one. Jones has never just shut down a contender and smoked them without taking anything to like damage-wise to himself. So Pereira's proven himself as a different beast. Aspinall, I mean, when has Jones ever done anything Aspinall's done to someone? Just smoke him, shut him down. Never. These are the two savages in the UFC. Let Jones and Stipe have their silly little fucking old age pensioners match. No one gives a fuck about it. It's a sham. They're all fake. Pereira, Aspinall, this is the real matchup that we need to see. So I would love to see Alex Pereira move up, fight Tom Aspinall, and have that third belt on the line maybe at the end of the year. Ankalaev could also get a title shot, yeah? However, fuck him, dude. We have to justify that. That would be doing him a favor. Why does he deserve a favor? Pereira's the one stepping up saving events. He's the one who stepped up and saved 300. He's the one who stepped up and saved 303. So's Jamal Hill. So is Garry Prochazka. I'm sorry, but where was Ankalaev during all of this? He was whining on Twitter saying that Alex Pereira should have to fight him in Abu Dhabi. So I'm done with the privilege. I know that's what they're probably going to do. They're going to still give it to Ankalaev. But I'm done with that. You beat Johnny Walker. You beat Anthony Smith. Who else have you beat recently? No one. So, you know, I think Ankalaev should have to win one more fight. Maybe against a Rakic. Maybe against a winner of an upcoming matchup. Who knows? But you would have to justify it. And I would much rather justify Pereira getting an opportunity at the third belt. At heavyweight. And the winner of this one, if Jones is still like on the fence on whether or not he wants to return, there's no better way of baiting him back in than to have this matchup and to have a winner of this matchup in Pereira versus Aspinall. Now, I would pick Tom Aspinall because I don't think he has downs. A lot of these guys do. Strickland, Jamal Hill, Garry. Aspinall does seem quite smart, and I've seen him just bolt double legs on people before, so I think he will do that to Pereira. However, it's still an exciting matchup, and after Pereira's recent wins at light heavyweight, 2 in a row now, I mean, people are only going to be more confident in his chances. I remember when he first moved up to light heavyweight and he fought Jan Blachowicz and then beat Garry the first time. People were like, dude, Aspinall would absolutely destroy him. He doesn't want this matchup. Now it's like, okay, you could just sleep him. So let's make this matchup. I'd love to see it. We move on. Garry Prochazka. If Aspinall beats Blades, which is a big if, and if the world hates me as much as I think it does when it comes to fight results, Aspinall won't beat Blades. But I hope he does. I think he does. And I want to see that matchup. Garry Prochazka. This is how legends are made. As soon as I heard the walkout, I'm telling you right now, my confidence dropped. Now, I was watching Pereira and he looked a little shaky in the eyes. He didn't seem as, like, locked in as normal. But, dude, when Garry came out to that fucking Dude Perfect song, Jesus Christ, dude, I really felt sad. Garry lost. Take some time off. Come back in December. Jamal Hill. Jamal Hill recently got injured. He pulled out of his fight, which was supposed to be on this card at UFC 303. Give him some time. Come back at the end of the year. In December, Garry Prochazka, Jamal Hill. That's the matchup I want to see. I don't really get any other matchup. You know what I mean? There could be a Krylov fight in there somewhere. There could be even an Ankalaev fight, but scheduling-wise, that might not make too much sense. You could even just run Krylov-Ankalaev 2 in Abu Dhabi, in all honesty, because either one of them, if they win, would be very deserving of a title shot in the light heavyweight division. So maybe that's the move they should make, because last time it went to a reasonably competitive 29-28 decision between Krylov and Ankalaev a couple years back. So that'd be a good fight to run back. But Garry, Jamal Hill, they've had history. They were supposed to fight each other before. Alex Pereira moved up to light heavyweight and he took the belt. But they were the two that were sort of lining up to fight each other at the top of light heavyweight for a while. But the fight never ended up happening. So I think they should do Garry Prochazka versus Jamal Hill. The history is there. They've already got a face-off between the two of them in the crowd and stuff like that. So give Garry some time off. Have him come back in December against Jamal Hill. And the winner of that can fight someone to then get their title shot. Who knows? We move on. Diego Lopes beat Dan Ige in the co-main event. Amazing win by Diego Lopes. Didn't look the greatest in the third round. However, he still won the fight. And he had to make all these different weight stipulations all throughout the week. So you got to give him some credit. And Dan Ige was in full training camp for a fight and didn't have to cut weight. So even though it was on short notice, very short notice, and he had to he probably wasn't very mentally prepared for a fight, he was still in shape. Like, he'd just been in training camp for about 6 weeks. He was supposed to be fighting someone in like 2 or 3 weeks from now. So, Diego Lopes won. I think Brian Ortega is the matchup. And if I'm Brian Ortega and I just saw that Dan Ige fight, I'm thinking, okay, this guy doesn't just smoke everyone. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking if I'm Brian Ortega, I'll take that fight. I'm a little bit more confident in myself now. Maybe the odds are going to be closer than they were before. Diego Lopes versus Brian Ortega in the Sphere. I feel like they'll want to have Ortega in the Sphere. I think they want to have Diego Lopes. I saw Dana White saying that he's going to honor their wish, Diego and Dan Ige, to get into the Sphere. So I think Diego Lopes versus Brian Ortega should be rebooked. The reason why is because there's no real storyline outside of Movsar Evloev, and I don't think Evloev's going to fight Diego Lopes again. I reckon Evloev's going to end up fighting someone else, like a Volk. I can actually just see them making that fight. Or a Yair, or one of these types of matchups. I think they should just rebook Diego Lopes, Brian Ortega. They've both shown that they're willing to fight each other. That's already one step done in terms of getting a fight made. You've already got that one in your back pocket. You know they want to fight each other, and they will if they're asked. So give Brian Ortega a full training camp. Give them both full preparation for the Sphere. And let's put them in there against each other. Keep it active, man. No time to waste. 2 and a bit months. Get him back in there against Brian Ortega. If not Brian Ortega, Josh Emmett would be a great matchup against Diego Lopes. And I'd love to see that fight as well. But really looking forward to this. Rebook it because, again, outside of Evloev, Lopes has no build with any other fighter in the featherweight division. He's not like he can build a fight with them based on history they have or back and forth they've had on social media other than Evloev. So the fact that he has this Ortega fight that got taken from us before the very fight happened, that adds a bit of promotion to it. It's the fight that we never got. It's the fight that was supposed to happen. And that's better than just nothing and having him against some random other contender at featherweight where there's just no history whatsoever. So there's something compelling about getting the fight that he didn't get in the first place. And now it's more compelling of a fight because I thought Lopes would smoke Ortega. Maybe he still will. But after the Dan Ige fight, now I'm thinking, oh, Ortega's got a much better chance than I thought. So let's do Lopes versus Ortega. We move on. Dan Ige. I reckon him versus Lerone Murphy is what you do in the Sphere. They said they're going to put Dan Ige on the Sphere. Lerone Murphy beat Edson Barboza and said if he can make it, he wants to be on the UK card in July in Manchester. That's where he's from. But he ain't going to make the Manchester card. I think that's pretty obvious by now. I think he broke his nose in his fight against Edson Barboza. So he's going to need some time. But I think he might be able to make a return around the Sphere. So I reckon prelims of the Sphere, Dan Ige versus Lerone Murphy. Makes sense. Murphy's above him in the rankings, I know, but I don't think Murphy's quite in the position in terms of, like, you know, no one really knows him. He's not too big of a name. I don't think he's in a position to start saying, I want a top 10 now or nothing. So let's give him another ranked opponent in Dan Ige, and the winner of this one can start looking towards the top 10 of the featherweight division. So Dan Ige, Lerone Murphy, make the matchup happen. Ian Garry beat MVP by doing 0 damage to him, but won the first and third round. Listen, Makhachev beat Volk in the first fight the same way. You know what I mean? So we got to keep the same energy here. Ian Garry won. He mixed the martial arts. And honestly, MVP threw fucking 6 shots in round 2. So I'm like, I don't know how much we can really slander Garry for this. MVP was on the feet with him for a long time in that fight. And he really very limitedly selected his shots there. He really stalled out the fight. But Ian Garry made it very boring as well. I'm just saying, there's both parts to blame here on how shit that fight was. Ian Garry won, though, which is the important thing for him. Just make the Covington fight. Like, look at the screen right now. Look at the matchups that can be made. This is a great matchup. Ian Garry, Colby Covington is such a high-value matchup that needs to be made. This is the type of matchup, and I mean this about Pereira versus Aspinall as well. We need matchups in the UFC where if you don't get it, you'll regret it. That's what we need. If we have a matchup where you're looking at it and thinking, damn, if this never happens and we look back 3 years from now, I'm going to really wish it happened. The way the UFC is right now with how shit some of the cards have been and how dog shit the whole promotion is recently in the West. When it comes to Abu Dhabi cards and Saudi Arabia cards, they put on a good show. But with every other country in the world, they're just dog shit. Like, just dog shit events back to back. We got to take advantage of these matchups while we can. We have to. You know, I know Ian Garry, Shavkat were going back and forth. I don't think they're going to fight. I think Shavkat JDM is what's going to happen. So I reckon Ian Garry versus Colby Covington is the matchup to make. This will be a matchup where if I look back in 5 years' time and I see them right next to each other in the rankings at welterweight and they're both free and ready to fight and we didn't make the fight, I'll massively regret it. So let's add that to a card, maybe McGregor's return card, and that'll be a great way to bait both Ian Garry and Covington to be a part of the co-main event, because with a McGregor card, you can't have titles on the card because they're going to be under McGregor, and you don't want that because McGregor won't be fighting for a title. So I say do McGregor versus Chandler, and then do Ian Garry versus Colby Covington. Ian Garry and Michael Chandler on one side of the press conference, and Covington and McGregor on the other side of the press conference, and just let chaos ensue. You can have Tabit on the main card, you can have a sprinkling of other prospects, you don't need any other big names, you just need McGregor Chandler main event, Ian Garry Colby Covington co-main event, and a bunch of fun style matchups that hardcore fans know about, and that'll be a sick card. So I think that's what they should do. MVP on the other hand. Another thing, this is exactly what I just said about the Ian Garry matchup, so I'm not going to just repeat myself over and over again. But there's matchups where if you don't make them while you can, you will regret it for the rest of your life. MVP versus Wonderboy is that matchup. Now, I'm thinking to myself, MVP's not even got good wins. He beat Holland. Oh, well, you know what I mean? You took Holland to a decision. You're number 14 in the rankings. You arguably should be number 15 or out of the rankings right now after that loss to Ian Garry. You don't really have much value in the company. So I was thinking, let's just not give him the Wonderboy fight. What has he done to deserve that? But in a way, it's nice to Wonderboy to give him a striker, right? Like, I'm thinking, like, what is Wonderboy going to come back to? He's already beat Jeff Neal. He's beat these other guys. He's not going to come back for a Neil Magny matchup. He's not going to come back for... He's already beat Luque. You know what I mean? He's already beat Kevin Holland. I'm looking at the rankings in the welterweight division. I'm saying, okay, he's beat him. He's beat him. He's not going to fight Sean Brady. He's already lost to Burns. He's already fought... Like, he's fought so many of these guys, and he's lost, and he's won, and I'm just thinking, okay, someone he hasn't beaten, someone he hasn't lost to, someone who's a striker. MVP. And this will be a matchup where Fight Night main event crowded, in my opinion. a crowded arena fight night main event. I know it also brings pay-per-view value as well. Maybe they can add it to a pay-per-view card. But I want this to be the spectacle. I want it to be this weekend, the two best strikers in maybe MMA history are going to go at it. Yeah, they might be over their prime or past their prime, especially in Wonderboy's case. But we need to make this matchup happen. So MVP, Wonderboy, make it happen. Fight night main event, crowded arena. Maybe do it in like South Carolina or even in the UK if you want to do it with MVP as well. I don't know. Whatever you want to do, make that matchup happen, in my opinion. Anthony Smith lost his fight. Terrible, awful fight. Looked shit. Looked like he's never trained a day in his life. And, yeah, Anthony Smith lost. Do him against Dominic Reyes. Dominic Reyes called him out, and he lost, and Reyes called him out again. And I just want Reyes to get back to the title, so let's just give him Anthony Smith, let him beat up on him. He's not a dumb tard who has mental disorders like Vitor Petrino, Sean Strickland, Jamal Hill-Yuri. We've been over this. I'm going to start... I might make a video where I point out some of the fighters that I think have an extra chromosome, but he's not Vitor Petrino. He's not going to shoot into a guillotine and let himself get guillotined like a tard with no brain. He's going to fight, and he's going to take smart decisions. And I reckon him versus Anthony Smith would be a good build-up, an exciting fight. We're talking, it could be a main event of an Apex card, right? Anthony Smith, Dominic Reyes, at this point, with some of the fucking Apex cards they're putting on with the main events, that's a good main event of an Apex card, unironically, sorry. So, Anthony Smith, Dominic Reyes, make it happen. It could also be like a prelim headliner of a pay-per-view. It could also be like a co-main event of a crowded fight night card. Maybe you do MVP versus Wonderboy main event, Anthony Smith, Dominic Reyes co-main event. And again, put whatever you want on the rest of that fight night card. You will sell out an arena, and you will have a very interested fan base watching. It's not hard. You just need two decent fights, and you can put on an event. I don't know why the UFC struggles so much with that. Either way, Joe Pyfer, huge win over Marc-Andre Barriault. A little bit behind the head, but it's fair. It was a fair shot. Joe Pyfer puts out Marc-Andre Barriault, reignites the hype, if you will. Calls out Paul Craig. Not a fan of that call out. In fact, I'll say this right now. I think that's a pathetic bitch-ass call out, and I think Pyfer's a bitch for calling him out. Like, that's bullying. Like, what the fuck? Paul Craig cannot defend himself. Like, what are you... It's like calling out a random fan. Like, I don't like that matchup. I think that's cheap from Pyfer to call out for Paul Craig. So, Chris Curtis lost to Brendan Allen. Got injured in the fight. Is probably coming back into training now from that injury that he had against Brendan Allen. I think he tore a groin muscle or something along those lines. So I think he's going to be coming back into training soon. Joe Pyfer doesn't really need to make too quick of a turnaround. So I'm thinking Joe Pyfer versus Chris Curtis. They're both names. It's a matchup that you will pay attention to. Co-main event of a fight night in the Apex. I reckon that it'll probably be a fight night main event in the Apex, honestly, if they make this matchup. But prelims of a pay-per-view, wherever you want to put it, Joe Pyfer versus Chris Curtis, I think, is a fun matchup that fans will be interested by at middleweight at this point. And I just don't want to see someone where it's like, I want to see a Pyfer matchup where I'm like, can he KO this guy? I don't want to see a Pyfer matchup where I'm like, he's going to KO this guy. And that's what the Paul Craig matchup is. The Chris Curtis one is like, Curtis has a really good chin. He doesn't really get chinned. I don't think he has been chinned in his UFC career, as far as I'm aware. Yeah, I don't think he has. So if Pyfer chins him, that's an accomplishment. And that's what I want to see for Pyfer. So Pyfer versus Curtis, make it happen. Maybe around October, something like that. Peyton Tabott, won on the prelims. Immediate KO. You got to get this guy on the McGregor card. You just have to. He has to have a spot on the main card of it as well. And he called out Adrian Yanez. Was once a popular up-and-coming bantamweight prospect. Lost to Davey Grant. Got given a win by decision somehow. And then got fraud-checked by Rob Font. And then I think he lost to Jonathan Martinez after that, getting his legs chewed up. But now he's bounced back against a schmuck in Vinicius Salvador, I think it was. So Peyton Tabott versus Adrian Yanez. Adrian Yanez responded, looking like he's interested in the fight. Peyton Tabott said he wanted the fight. That's the difficult part of getting fights made done. They both want it. Make it happen. Put it on the McGregor card. I'm thinking McGregor versus Chandler main event. September, October, pay-per-view, Las Vegas, McGregor Chandler main event. Co-main event Ian Garry versus Colby Covington. Put Joe Pyfer versus Chris Curtis on the main card. Put Peyton Tabor, Adrian Yanez on the main card. You don't need huge hundreds of thousands of dollars payments of fighters to be on these pay-per-view cards of McGregor. You just need people that the fans actually care about watching the career of. Pyfer's one of them. Tabor's one of them. Find the right dance partners, and you can create 3 massive stars and still sell a great pay-per-view. So, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. That's all of the matchups to make after UFC 303. Toodle pip and goodbye.